This is a magician. And this is a woman in a box. The magician is about to cut her in half, with hopes of thrilling the audience who watch his every move. Of course, the man isn't actually cutting the woman in half, and the audience knows it. Yet, they can't help but to watch as he slowly begins to cut through the box. This trick is known as the sawing in half illusion, and it has now become a staple within the world of magic. It revolutionized the magic industry, created celebrity magicians, and even went on to impact pop culture in both positive and negative ways. But when was this trick created, and what are the secrets behind it? I'll answer that and much more in today's video, The History of Sawing People in Half. While there are many differing accounts of when the sawing in half illusion was first created and performed, the most accepted answer is that it came from the mind of magician P.T. Selbit in the early 1900s, a time defined by one of the most famous magicians of all time, Harry Houdini, making his mark, and a wave of amateur magicians following in his footsteps. P.T. Selbit was born in 1881 in London. He fell in love with magic at an early age, and by the time he was 23, he was already performing for crowds. From there, he worked with a number of established magicians and is said to have been the original creator of the walking through a wall trick that Houdini later claimed to invent himself. Whether driven by ambition or a sense of rivalry is up for debate, but one thing cannot be denied. Selbit became obsessed with creating his own trick that would put him on the map, and that is exactly what he did. It was December of 1920, and after years of working towards his goal of creating his own magic trick, Selbit was preparing to debut his creation at St. George's Hall in London. The pressure was on, but nothing was going to stand in the way of his success. The promoters loved it, and just 1 month later, in January 1921, Selbit showcased his new magic act at the Finsbury Park Empire Theatre in London. While on stage, Selbit had his assistant climb into a coffin-like wooden box. He then tied her wrists, ankles, and even her neck so she couldn't escape. The crowd looked on with a mix of shock, horror, and, most importantly, interest and apprehension for what would come next. As Selbit slowly lifted the saw, the tension in the room became palpable, reaching a climax as he began sawing through the box. Children buried their heads in their parents' lap, and women began to scream. But Selbit continued with determination, and the woman inside the box made no objection. It wasn't until Selbit finally removed her from the box, revealing that she was unharmed, that the crowd began to relax. Selbit went home that night satisfied with his performance, but little did he know, he was about to gain everything he had ever wanted. In what seemed like an overnight success, Selbit became renowned across the nation for his daring trick that pushed the boundaries of the industry. However, just as Selbit sought fame after witnessing Houdini's success, many amateur and established magicians alike began creating their own versions of the sawing in half illusion that Selbit had invented, which was easy, as the Thayer Magic Company began selling the plans for $5 and the entire kit and caboodle for $175. The most famous adaptation came from a magician named Horace Golden. In Golden's version, the box would contain a female assistant and some fake feet. The fake feet would be hidden in the bottom half of the box, while the female assistant would be introduced to the audience and then placed in the top half. Once the female assistant was in position, she would stick the fake legs out from the bottom instead of her own. The magician would then saw through the box and split it, creating the illusion that the person was truly cut in half, as both their heads and legs were sticking out of each half, despite both halves not being connected. While the two versions of the trick were different in method, one thing remained the same: the inclusion of an attractive female assistant. In fact, experts now argue that it was actually Selbit's sawing in half illusion that gave rise to the trend of using attractive women as your assistants in the magic world, especially when it features dangerous situations. Following his meteoric rise, Selbit left London and set his sights on the United States. However, his dream was quickly dashed when he arrived and discovered that Golden, the man who had adapted his trick, had already claimed the title Selbit had hoped to use for his act. As a result, Selbit was forced to use the title The Divided Woman, which was less than successful. Despite the controversy between the two rivals, many other magicians began to claim their own versions of the trick. Some used thinner boxes to make the audience question the possibility of a woman bunching up her legs, while others used transparent boxes for added intrigue. Some used larger saws to enhance the dramatic, and a few even went as far to saw through multiple parts of the woman's body. In the most extreme cases, some magicians would even go as far as to hire twins to use them both as the assistant and have a real woman in each half of the box. The heart of the trick lay in convincing the audience that the assistant was really being cut in half. However, in 1956, this was pushed to its limit when magician Sorcar performed the trick live on television in collaboration with the BBC. Unfortunately, the broadcast ended abruptly, right before Sorcar could reveal that his assistant was unharmed. This led to an influx of people calling the station, desperately trying to figure out what had just happened. What did they see? Did they really see somebody get cut in half live on TV? But such is the way of show business. There's always someone willing to push boundaries even further. For example, Alfred Hitchcock, one of history's finest directors, even featured it in his movie The Sorcerer's Apprentice. However, due to the level of gore he included, the network at the time decided not to air it. But that's nothing compared to what the next person did. Enter Ricciardi Jr., a magician who grew bored with the traditional sawing in half illusion and had a slight penchant for gore. For his version, he introduced fake blood and even fake organs to enhance the drama and reinforce the illusion that the person was genuinely being cut in half. Naturally, Ricciardi's version is now regarded as the most gruesome, with some arguing that it misses the point of the trick altogether, and others arguing that it actually laid the groundwork for a modern illusion we now know as psychic surgery. But what was the point of this trick originally? Well, I believe that Selbit was trying to create something that really pushed the boundaries of the magic industry. Something to make a name for himself. Something that mixed reality and illusion in a way that made people think maybe, just maybe, they were witnessing real magic for the first time in their lives. Which is why, just over 100 years later, the trick is still regarded as one of the most iconic tricks of all time. In fact, a quick search on YouTube will reveal that modern magicians are still performing their own versions of this incredible magic trick. But what do you think about the sawing in half illusion? Do you believe that Selbit was the true creator, or was he maybe simply just the first to perform it? Let me know in the comment section below, and thanks for watching. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you so much, and please consider subscribing for more videos about everything magic.